Okay, so we're going to be going through the demonstration that we put together for the Space Symposium here. Basically, as we get started, we'll learn about the scenario. What we have designed this around is the great power competition between the United States and China as it pertains to the race to the moon. So in it, we have given background on the Chinese lunar exploration program, and then you move into a scenario in which you're playing the role of a Space Force officer and you're presented with a challenge. So we're going to go ahead and click through here and learn a little bit more about this challenge. So a little bit of background on the great power competition and why this is important. So a lot of Space Force specifically, and the United States government in general, is very concerned about activity that the Chinese are taking in space. So not only kind of in the traditional orbital regimes, LEO, MEO, HEO, GEO, all that stuff, but also beyond, out to cislunar and eventually the lunar surface. So let's learn a little bit more about the Chinese lunar exploration program. It's basically a 4-phase program that started back in the early 2000s and is still continuing today. And what's a little bit concerning about it is that they've hit every single milestone that they've advertised, which is very unlikely for the space industry. So something to keep a tab on, and a lot of people are keeping a very close eye on the Chinese lunar exploration program. So the students can go through and learn about the different phases, just very general information about the phases and the different missions that were accomplished during the phases. And then ending with phase 4, which is going to culminate with the Chinese placing somebody on the moon, on the lunar surface. Okay, so like I mentioned before, the scenario, you're a Space Force officer and you're working with the Space Rapid Capabilities Office. And what they specialize in is exactly what the name is it's fielding stuff at a quicker rate than the traditional space industry is able to do. So it's in the past, it's been very slow. It takes years to get something built and eventually launched into orbit. The Space Rapid Capabilities Office shortens that timeline dramatically, and they work with industry, kind of using the cutting edge stuff to make sure that we stay relevant in the space race. So it gives a little bit of background too. So specifically with the Lagrange points, the L2 Lagrange point that you can see there is what we're going to be talking about in the scenario. And it's a point right beyond the moon it's right beyond the moon that places the moon in between the Earth and the sun. So it's a really good spot to look at the backside of the moon. And it's also why the James Webb Telescope is out there, is so that there's no light pollution from the sun. It's getting blocked by the moon being on the back end there. You don't necessarily need to know that for the customers, but it's just kind of good to keep in the back of your head. It's a relevant point that people are talking about today. So basically, after the student has read through all those different phases of the Chinese lunar exploration program, and you're placed in this scenario where China has launched something unknown into that L2 Lagrange point that hasn't been advertised in that lunar exploration program phases, in any of those phases. So you're tasked with finding out what's going on with that spacecraft that's out there. Then in this scenario, or this portion of the course, you're learning about some of the unknowns that you have to think through as you're deciding how you're best going to solve this problem. So everything from a robotic arm that could grab your spacecraft that's coming in, to spraying aerosols on optics if you're flying something super close to it. It's, again, just to put people in that frame of mind that you're solving a problem. You're not just passively ingesting information, you're actively trying to solve a problem here as you're going through this. And then finally, you're making your choice. So the 3 choices that we're giving to students is to build a whole new spacecraft, repurpose the Hubble, which is currently in LEO close to Earth, so sending that into a transfer orbit out to the L2 point to hopefully image this unknown Chinese satellite. And then repurpose a GSAP, which is another existing program that sits out on the GEO belt. So you can read through some of the narratives, the pros, cons for each one of these, and then you're going to make your decision. So we're going to do repurpose the Hubble. Then it kind of concludes with the different, the commentary and then the results of that situation. So we can read through these kind of as you have time, but basically it's just different ways to think through this problem that's been presented. And it culminates with a video from Chris here on the back end. But what we want to highlight to folks is that it's not just a passive experience. You're actually making a decision in here and it's not just PowerPoint slides. You're kind of moving all over the screen. Yeah, it's absolutely immersive and puts you in the shoes of something that could absolutely be happening in the near future.